Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Congressman Andy Biggs, the co-chair of the Border Security Caucus, is here with us now. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Nick. Good to be with you.
So let's jump right into it. There are physical barriers on about 450 miles of the 2,000-mile U.S.-Mexico border. You recently were there, seeing the situation up close. Do you think Biden's decision to halt the additional physical barriers at the border has helped or hurt the national security of the United States?
I think it's done serious harm, and we will start seeing the extent of that harm in the next few weeks and days to come. Because, look, just being down there with agents, everybody we talk to, whether it's farmers, agents, ranchers, whatever, they all said that barrier had been instrumental in slowing the traffic across their land and illegal entry into the U.S. And since we don't vet everybody who's coming into this country illegally, I think it's going to be a real security problem.
Now, there is a huge barrier surrounding the entire U.S. Capitol after the riot that took place on January 6th. Some members are saying it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. It's about 7 feet, and there haven't been any incidents since the Capitol riot. Do you see any connection between that debate and having that physical barrier at the border, more barriers, adding barriers at the border, and then the Capitol having that large fence around? Is there a connection there in your mind?
Well, I mean, the same people who tell me that fences don't work on the border want to have this fence and turn the Capitol into a military compound. So we don't know of any existing emergent threat to the Capitol, but we do know of an existing emergent threat to our nation through the border, people crossing the border illegally that are coming across. So I look at it and I say, there's two things here. They built a fence because they know fences actually do work. So we ought to continue our fence on the border. And the second thing is they came in with overwhelming military personnel. So they had an overwhelming amount of personnel to respond as a secondary response if anybody tried to breach the fence. We don't have that on the border. And we need to make sure that we have enough agents on the border working down there with a substantial fence to basically intercede as well. Those types of things, with the technology that we were putting in down on the border, will really help us control the border. And if you don't control your border, you really don't have national security. It's very easy for anybody to get across our border today.
Do you think the Republicans will try, during this stimulus debate, try to get some funding put in there for additional barriers and maybe make that a sticking point in these negotiations on related to the stimulus or immigration?
We will certainly try to put forward that idea, but basically the Democrats have said to us, you know, you can either come along with us or we're going to do this without you because we don't need you. We have enough votes in both houses and we have the presidency. They don't really care. In fact, you just need to take a look at that they're taking money away from the border fence, and they're also reducing funding in other areas that would also provide help along the border.
Well, staying on immigration, I wanted to see if you thought Biden was going to try to offer a path to citizenship next after the stimulus debate. Do you think that's coming? And what do you see as the possible economic impact of doing some sort of comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship for the millions of undocumented immigrants in the U.S.?
Well, so President Biden has said he's going to do something. And many of the people on the other side of the aisle have said they want it in one big deal. And they don't want an 8-year path to citizenship. They want a 5-year path to citizenship. And they want to do a full amnesty, not a partial amnesty. They want to parole people who've actually left the country and bring them back into the country. And they want to stop deportations. They want to expand amnesty and refugee programs and reduce the vetting. That's part of what they want to do. What the economic impact would be, Nick, is that in a time where we still have states that are locked down to in certain significant ways, and we have people out of work, people underemployed, coming out of a recession. So when you actually bring in people, you actually dilute the labor pool and make it hard for people to get fair wages. You make it hard for them to get what they're worth. You make it hard for them to get full employment, and it'll be very, very difficult. And that's just one of many of the problems that come in when you acknowledge that we actually bring in about over 2 million legal immigrants to this country every year, and then you're going to basically allow another 1 to 2 million illegal entries under the Biden plan.
I also wanted to ask you about the judge delaying the deportations for 100 days. Do you think that's going to get extended going forward? Do you think they'll actually make it longer, the Biden administration, and possibly a future ruling, make that even longer than 100 days?
Yeah, so I mean, that ruling was great and it was important, but the Biden administration, I think it wants to extend the deportation moratorium for an even longer period, up to 6 months. And they also want to halt the Remain in Mexico program. That's part of one of the executive orders from yesterday. They also want to they're talking about eliminating Title 42, which has turned away hundreds of thousands of people, which was designed to protect the safety of the Border Patrol agents from COVID. And they want to do away with all of those things, those are all incentives and draws and magnets for people to try to enter illegally into the country.
I also wanted to ask you about the reconciliation process that was put forth and was approved in the House and the Senate last night. What do you think is going to happen there? Do you see the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that Biden's proposed passing with only Democratic votes, or do you think the Republicans might be able to do something to kind of halt that process before it goes even further?
Well, as you know, they have the votes in the House and the Senate, and Chuck Schumer said that he's going to just basically, if he has to, just pass that straight up without any Republican participation, quite frankly. And I think that's their approach. They don't want the Republicans to go in the House. We're not going to be able to offer amendments. We're not going to be able to actually engage in meaningful debate. And that's what happens in a majoritarian self-governing body where the majority party says, we just don't really care what the minority party says. And that is the truth. They really don't care what we say, Nick, and that's the sad truth. And we can go out there and we can make the arguments, we can try to offer our amendments, but they will not allow us to actually have that participation. But we're going to keep going forward and trying to offer these types of things to try to make this more palatable and more reasonable. It's up to them, and I don't think that they'll let us participate.
We have about 30 seconds left. I looked back and I didn't see any examples of reconciliation being used on stimulus. Is that correct?
That's my belief. That's what I've been told as well. This is a unique deal, and it's unfortunate because this should be going through a full debate separately and apart.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I appreciate it. We'll be back.